It's the 5th edition, and nothing would have been possible without this core team who stood by us, and thank you to all the GCC leaders for making things happen. Wishing you all the very best for all the transformational shift that we are going to have in years ahead. And on that note, we will quickly move ahead to what's waiting or what's coming up next. Ladies and gentlemen, we now move to an exclusive strategic featuring the architects behind some of India's most successful GCC scaling journeys. The man I'm about to introduce to you, we call him the champion of GCC. Since this company's inception, it has established 130 plus GCCs cumulative accountably from over 1 lakh employees. And it serves on the board of 𝗟𝗲𝗍𝗶𝗃 Inc., United Way, Victoria's Secret, Delta Airlines, Advanced Auto Parts, Giant Eagle, Northern Tool Plus Equipment, 3M, Hilton, and Inspire Brands. Previously held leadership positions as chairman and president of Target Corporation India. He's also been the CEO of Star TV, CEO of LG Electronics India, someone who started his career in the Indian Navy before retiring as a lieutenant commander. Lalit is a man that we look out for, is an alumnus of IIT Mumbai and 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 Pilani. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to invite onto the stage the co-founder and the Chief Executive Officer, ANSR. Please put your hands together for Mr. Lalit Ahuja. A true champion on its own. Lovely having you with us, sir. While we request all our speakers to take the seats accordingly as your pictures are on the stage, on the screen. Thank you, sir. Could you please take the first chair if that's okay? We want to see you right here, spearheading the conversations. Thank you, sir. With that, ladies and gentlemen, from ANSR, we also have our co-founder, Mr. Vikram Ahuja. He's also the CEO of OneWork, which helps fast-growth businesses build and manage global teams via AI-enabled platform. Lovely having you with us. A serial entrepreneur with over 20 years experience, has stellar experience in building and scaling technology ventures across travel and e-commerce. Also co-founded one of India's earliest startup accelerator, Chiron, acquired by Techstars, and he also possesses a degree from and an MBA along with computer science. Thank you for joining us here today. Lovely having both of you with us. And our next dignitary, ladies and gentlemen, the Managing Director, ANSR, Smitha Hemmigae. Let's welcome her with a round of applause. Lovely having you with us, Ms. Smitha, who leads enterprise-wide growth initiatives and architects differentiated client strategies at ANSR. 2 decades of progressive and proven leadership experience and held leadership roles at ThoughtWorks, CSS Corp, Unisys, Infosys, and Logica. Co-trustee of a non-profit, Bengaluru Trust champions non-profit initiatives that create lasting community change. What a wonderful panel this is. What a lovely smile that is. Ladies and gentlemen, give them a round of applause. They are taking us through strategic dialogues. I would now like to hand over the panel to Ms. Smitha. Over to the two of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here, and good morning to everybody. It's been a fantastic week so far. We met some of you 2 days back. We met near the airport. We had a small GCC conclave where we had some amazing conversations around AI. And we had Hari Marar from the airport. We had Lalit give a small keynote discussion, as well as we had a senior leader from Microsoft. And some very interesting insights on how they have a developer who comes on GitHub every second. They are saying GitHub's India presence is among the 2nd largest in the world. They're also seeing a whole host of code. So even bad coders like me who could never write code, now even I can write products, and they've given me a whole host of confidence. So maybe I can also come and apply for a job in the GCC world. So I think it's interesting times. I was in Delhi yesterday, attending the AI Summit. And then I had a closed-door private event with OpenAI. I heard Sam Altman talk about, how they're seeing India as a key market, how Codex is having the maximum contribution or the second largest maximum contribution from India. And he also spoke about the evolution of the OpenAI platform. He said 10 years back, you could add two 10-digit numbers, and it was a big deal. Systems are able to do that. Fast forward 8 years, and then they see it could do some bad high school math, and they still gave a lot of credibility to the platform. Moving a little forward, last year, they could do high school math really well. But look at the leap. This year, the systems are able to do and solve research-related math problems. So I think there is this whole evolution and how technology is catching up. And it's going to be really interesting to see how this entire era of AI and how it will lay out. It's an exciting moment for me. I think we've never had, it's like one of those India-Pakistan matches. We've never had Lalit and Vikram on a panel before. I've always seen them in two separate panels. So while I do have the opportunity to ask them questions today, I think you all also have the opportunity right at the end of this session to also ask them any questions that you may have on the course of what's happening with the GCC industry and so on and so forth. But with this said, Lalit, I'd like to start with you. And it's been an exciting year so far, right? You started the year, you've been at Davos, you've represented the GCCs in Davos for the first time. Been in the middle of a lot of conversations with large enterprises, and you've been pioneering this whole GCC segment. It's now an established market. And now we see AI as a wild card. So what do you see as transformation? What do you see as what's next for us? Or what are trends that you're seeing in the market?
Thank you, Smitha. Good morning. And, before I answer the question, two quick comments on RK's keynote. I believe, there's going to be, nothing after AI. AI, in some ways, is the final frontier. And if you have time, I'll talk more about the fact that it'll subsume anything else that, was in the making from, technology sort of paradigm shift or disruption perspective. And second, to borrow his jerk or jolt word, I guess this is disruption time. There's going to be a big GCC ecosystem reset. And so be prepared for, many of the jolts that are going to be coming up. So, this is truly a disruption time. And much of it is because of the fact that this is the end of the beginning of everything GCCs. We have maturity, we have critical mass, we have talent, we have courage, we have conviction, we have enterprises coming with a lot of clarity, with a sense of purpose. And of course, we have the elephant in the room, the AI that is in many ways going to change everything, from here on. I guess I could talk about 100 disruptions that are clearly writing on the wall. But the most important one is going to be this whole notion of the perceived complexity of GCC and its evolution being disrupted by the simplicity of the operating model, right? So I guess operating model innovations is going to be one of the biggest disruptions in the marketplace. So we're going to be seeing a lot of work around organizations looking at what operating systems are going to work for them so that they can best, benefit from the talent and everything that countries like India would bring to them. Work itself is going to be a big disruption. We're going to think about, work very differently in the era of AI. And in some ways, work is going to be a casualty itself. It's going to be decomposed, recomposed, rethought, and we're going to do this in ways that has never been seen before. The other disruption I want to talk about is this whole notion of non-linearization of a very headcount-driven GCC industry. Everything was, per FTE, per seat. We always spoke about 2 million employees going to 3, 4.5 million. And that was how we measured how impactful this industry was becoming. And that's, changing, or the change has already started. We're going to talk about, obviously, GCCs. That'll not be about people, but that'll be about manifestations, that'll obviously introduce, agentic forms of, workforce that'll, bring about a complete change. So I guess the EY report of, $100 billion by 2030 and, whatever 3, 4.5 million people is, needs to be rewritten. That is going to be another, big change. Two other changes I want to focus on. One is this whole notion of the journey and the evolution that a lot of us very fondly talk about. That is going to go away. I mean, companies are now coming in, as I said earlier, with a lot of confidence, with a lot of clarity. You don't have to journey anymore. You just arrive, you just, hit the ground running. And that is going to be a big change because a number of years are just going to be taken off. The concept of maturation is going to go away. No different from how enterprises work. When you, seed a new team, when you onboard new FTEs, new team members, they don't go through a journey anymore. You are just part of the broader ecosystem, and that sort of takes over. So even when we are setting up GCCs, we are talking about, benchmarking, baselining with some of the high-performing incumbents and looking at, how do we extrapolate their journey 1, 2, 3 years out, and maybe having that as a starting point. So you start with a lot more, confidence and conviction about your ability to create the right notion. Finally, this whole notion of sovereignty of GCCs being independent enterprises is going to go away. The lines are going to get blurred. It'll be hard to tell, the difference between the enterprise and the GCCs. And that'll lead to a very big ecosystem reset. Again, back to 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 keynote, the importance of the ecosystem that supports the GCCs. The ecosystem has to rethink about not supporting GCCs, but supporting, the future of enterprises. And therefore, what they bring to the table has to be thought very, very differently. I mean, we can spend the whole day talking about disruptions, but, be prepared for big changes underway because of just so much, that has already gone on in the industry.
Thanks, Lalit. And Lalit spoke about this whole evolution and disruptions that's coming our way. But I'm also guessing that there is some part of the AI strategy, blueprinting that organizations are thinking of. And Vikram, you've been working with several GCCs over the last many months and a couple of years now, thinking about how they can think about their AI strategies and way forward, or what are they thinking? So could you just talk through some of your learnings and insights, please?
Sure, thanks Smitha, and good morning to everybody. Thank you, Samir, for having us. So I think, we're at a very interesting inflection point of adoption of AI. Many of you in this room are leaders championing that cause within your organizations. In terms of what we're seeing, there's roughly, I think, 3 approaches, and many of you might resonate with this. There is, do it yourself. There is have a partner do it, or a third version is some sort of hybrid where the mandate is being led internally, but there are execution partners that are coming in from outside. We're at a time where there's tremendous investments going into building companies that support AI adoption and rollout across enterprises. We're talking about now in the quantum of hundreds and millions of dollars being raised, right? So the tens don't cut it anymore. What we're seeing across the 250 odd GCCs that we've set up and currently work with is 4 different archetypes that are emerging. And I'm going to split these across capabilities as well as ambition. So if you define capability as being internal teams that exist, that can drive a lot of this work, and ambition as being some sort of publicly announced goal or mission. So if you weigh it against both of these dimensions, you've got on top far right, the strategic leaders. These are companies that are building capabilities in-house, doing a lot of this work internally, and doing it with the clear mission of establishing early advantages through their AI strategies. You've also got then the efficiency seekers. You've got companies that have capabilities but are starting slightly more cautiously, looking at re-engineering processes, looking at bringing in some sort of solutions that can drive efficiencies. You've got the cautious adopters. Some of you might identify with organizations where the ambition hasn't been defined clearly, capability has not been assigned or been empowered enough. And the goal there is wait and watch and adopt a slightly low stakes version to taking it. And then you've got the big transformation seekers who are coming out and taking a big hit for the fences and saying, we're going to do this and completely do it in a manner that's aggressive and complete, right? So I think we're seeing all of these archetypes emerging simultaneously. I don't think either of them is right. I don't think either of them is necessarily going to be the chosen path. I think at the end of the day, it's going to work based on the context that your organization carries. Although the one thing that is becoming clear, and I think the AI Summit being held in India is proof of that. GCCs are increasingly becoming a vehicle for this sort of mandate, right? So I think across our portfolio now, the hiring across AI-related roles has surged about 130-odd%. We know about 70% of the GCCs we work with are doing some sort of AI work. So there is tremendous momentum. But I'll also leave with one number that should probably worry many of you in this room, and that is about 65%. 65% of projects that have started somewhere mid last year have either stopped or completely been disbanded, right? And that just goes to show that the gold rush towards AI is perhaps going to have a lot of froth before there is some substance.
Thanks, Vikram. And just picking up on that gold rush that Vikram spoke about, there's also a lot of conversation that we're getting to see in the market. We see words like AI first GCCs, AI fabric, we've got names of precious metals, gems, all of that that's available today. And I want to ask you, Lalit, I mean, you're in the middle of a lot of this. Do you think there is some merit or it's a lot of hype?
So I go back to this whole concept of, sovereignty of GCCs. I guess, early days, GCC started off as some sort of an outpost, that coexisted with the enterprise, and the maturity of, the business model has led to, the GCC becoming an integral part of the organization. So I guess AI is a mandate, that the organizations will selectively, provide to, the GCCs, right? I mean, we see more of it happening in increasingly, but, AI is an enterprise strategy, products, platforms, use cases, change management. All of that is going to be driven by the mothership. And if GCC has been established, with the goal or with the objective of benefiting from AI in certain ways, or playing a role in building infrastructure, building a pool of talent, in building, or driving the agentification of certain business functions, I guess it's going to be driven by the enterprise. So there is a lot of noise about, and largely coming in from the ecosystem, that puts a lot of pressure on the GCC leaders on, showing their, AI muscle, even though they may or may not have, the mandate to do it. So my sort of advice, counsel, or opinion over here is that there's got to be a lot of alignment. You got to be in step with where the organization is going. Ultimately, this will be built on a very strong foundation of data engineering and, product strategy and enterprise plumbing and, platforms that enterprise would select or elect to, choose to drive their, AI agenda. So it cannot be and should not be done in isolation.
And while AI is real, and you did speak about certain numbers and spoke about what's really happening, behind the scenes when it comes to putting together the larger strategy and the blueprint, what are common use cases or POCs that you're seeing, being implemented and where there's been a fair degree of success within the GCCs?
Yeah, that's I think in some ways the question of the moment. Where do we start? So we're seeing a 3-tier framework that is being adopted. And if you were to sort of split use cases into these 3 tiers, right at the bottom, tier 3 is just agentic automation. These are use cases that are fairly replicable between organizations. And in some ways, there is already a marketplace of solutions that you can pick up and deploy. So that's tier 3. Tier 2 are use cases that are largely around process re-engineering. We're seeing a lot of our financial services and retail customers that are adopting this. This is taking existing processes across business as well as corporate functions, reimagining and rethinking those with AI and automation interventions. And tier 1 are your big advantage. This is your big bets, domain-specific, very nuanced in terms of adding a lot of business value. And in some ways, these are the big bets that organizations are taking based on internal capabilities. So I think the use cases that we're seeing fall into one of these 3 buckets. Again, depending on the archetype of where you are and as an organization, you're picking up the use case that makes sense. And largely what we're seeing is for companies that are starting to do a lot of DIY, it's tier 1, where there is product and platform companies coming in, it's tier 2, and then tier 3, sorry, and then tier 2 is largely being driven by these hybrid models.
Thanks, Vikram. And Lalit, you've been at the forefront of a lot of predictions, right? Like in the past, you've kind of looked at the crystal ball, or you've just been able to see the market and spot a few trends way ahead of where we see the market moving. And in the next 5 years, I think these 5 years are going to be very defining moments for the GCC industry. What do you see as big things in the horizon that leaders here in the room should look out for?
I think some of it I have already spoken, but let me build a little bit on AI and how it's going to impact enterprises and the role GCCs can play from several different perspectives. Not just building a pool of enterprise talent that will drive the AI agenda for the organizations, but also the whole notion of driving change management across the organization. AI, as we know, is going to be the biggest change management challenge, that organizations are going to face. It's just not going to be easy for companies to, finally get onto the AI bandwagon because of the profoundness of change management and how it has the potential to derail organizations. So GCCs will play a very important role. I was always disturbed by this whole notion of human in loop. There was something not right about it, right? And this morning, I was watching a video of Julie Sweet, at the OpenAI Summit. And she used the concept of how talent in India would, play the role of human in lead, right? And there's a big difference in terms of, being in the loop and being in the lead. And I think that is the GCC opportunity in terms of, being the human in lead, when AI becomes a lot more mainstream. So we've already started looking at realigning ourselves to, what's coming in the next 3 to 4 years. There is going to be obviously an increasing gap between capability and adoption. Yesterday I was talking to a CIO of one of our portfolio companies, possibly one of the largest Fortune companies. And, he was talking about how his organization has moved beyond the use case dilemma. They have a number of use cases that have been identified across the organization. So they are well on their way in terms of, AIization of those use cases. And the challenge that he was having was twofold. One is very low rate of adoption. Much of it has to do with, AI literacy and fluency, and much of it also has to do with the fear of unknown and, the change management that we were talking about. But I guess a related issue was around the widening gap between capability and adoption. And what I mean by this is the fact that AI is going to keep becoming more and more monstrous, by the day, right? It's even hard to imagine what OpenAI or Anthropic will deliver, not to talk of, Google and Microsoft and everybody who's playing this game next year. So 5 years, is scary, and it'll be, in very simple terms, out of control. But that also presents a huge opportunity, and, GCCs will be architected very differently. So sometimes, later part of this year, we're looking at a whole different architecture for GCCs, not dependent upon headcount, AI being the backbone, operating models that will support change management of the enterprises, humans in the lead, the whole notion of non-linearization, transition approaches. We talk a lot about knowledge transfer and knowledge transition. It's going to change completely. I mean, there used to be this dilemma of should you move work to GCCs after process improvements, or should you move as is and then process improve? And now it's about should you agentify what can be agentified and set it up very differently instead of going through some downstream pains. So, more to come on this, but we have a very interesting, architecture sort of evolving, lots of, elements of, sci-fi over here. And think about it, what used to be sci-fi not, very long ago is a very big reality. And that's why I was talking about this whole notion of, AI being the final frontier. We've always sort of operated with this mode of the fact that, there's ERP today and there'll be digital and cloud and InfoSec tomorrow, and then there'll be AI, and then there'll be maybe CI or XI. So I'm predicting, that, it sort of ends with AI, and AI will become monstrous in its own way, and it'll redefine work and who does the work and where is the work done and how is the work done. And GCCs will play a very important role. The ecosystem will be reset. The work will be orchestrated very differently. There'll be a lot of focus on qualitative sort of dimensions. We'll measure revenue differently. A headcount will not be the metric that will, define this entire industry. But I guess what I'm most excited about is how GCCs will reimagine industries, businesses, enterprises, because as they become humans and lead, as they become the AI change agents, as they take the ownership of work which is now agentified or AIized, the world is going to change very, very rapidly. A lot of it is going to be obviously, companies that will take the lead and go out and deliver successfully on the 3 different kinds of use cases that Vikram was talking about. And I guess when that happens, floodgates are going to open because a number of companies are just waiting on the fringes and on the wings, just looking for those inspirations and those validations that are literally weeks and months away, and our world is going to change, right? So this time, very hard to predict what's next year and what's coming up in 2030, but there'll be lots of jolts and jerks, and I think that's what we have to be ready for.
Thanks, Lalit. And Vikram, ANSR and GCCs are synonymous, right, with each other. And Lalit also spoke about that there'll be a huge shift in the way GCCs will be built and reimagined. What's the AI roadmap at ANSR that you're driving?
Yeah, so, I think I see the big wide time's up, so I'll keep it short. But at ANSR, I think we do something very simple. We orchestrate work, and we're helping decide, firstly, what is the work that gets done, and secondly, who does the work. Historically, it's always been people. That story is going to change. Human in lead, I think, is a good way to think about it. There's a lot of work that we are doing to bring in this AI-first thinking to the fore. We're seeing a lot of our customers launch AI COEs as a day 0 initiative. So on that front, we're going to be announcing some very exciting partnerships with some ecosystem leaders, which includes market-leading GCCs, hyperscalers, as well as some of the leading AI companies. So think industry accelerators powered by foundational GCC members, as well as some of these players. We've got our own global work platform called 𝗏𝗏. A lot of that has already been on AI for the last 7-8 years, and we're going to continue down that path. So if you look at something like talent acquisition today, 70-80% of the work that we do from sourcing, screening, interviewing, et cetera, already happens through AI-powered intervention. So that will continue. But more critically and most importantly, I think the work that we're most excited about is partnering with many of you in the room to continue to see how we can help you further your AI agenda. So a lot of that comes back to how do we build capabilities, find the right talent, put the right goals and objectives, and how do we drive that from India. So that's something that we will look forward to building together with all of you in this room.
Thanks Vikram, thanks Lalit for this conversation, and I hand it over back to you.
Thank you, Smitha, for driving the conversation. While I retain all 3 of you with us on stage, ladies and gentlemen, they are our knowledge partner, ANSR. Let's give a bigger round of applause. Meanwhile, I'd also like to invite Sameer back on stage to hand over the memento, the token of love and gratitude to our speakers. Thank you so much to the entire panel. Lalit sir has always been someone who's been the backbone for all our events at GCC X, and thank you for always being there, being our tremendous support. Thank you. Thank you so much. And as Smitha just mentioned, it's not easy getting 2 leaders together, and it's really, really wonderful to have Mr. Vikram as well join us here today. Thank you so much. A big hand, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Lalit Ahuja, co-founder and CEO ANSR. Mr. Vikram Ahuja, co-founder ANSR. Ms. Smitha Hemmigae, Managing Director ANSR. Thank you so much, Mr. Sameer, for doing the honors. Thanks a lot. Thank you to our speakers. We'll quickly move ahead.